Hopefully not forcing us to talk about some noodles. For Matcherino, it's Astrea.
In the top right, as the red Protoss, he is Trigger.
Zombie Grub, the weird thing about that, just final thought on that last series, is that the concept of Japchae has like showed up in my life multiple times since we cast last weekend. Like I don't think I've ever heard of it, and it's like
now you hear it all the time.
Yeah.
That's an effect. There's something that's called, right? I love when that happens. But yeah, no, it's actually delicious. The noodles are great and all that, sure, but whatever. But it's mostly just I like sesame oil and sugar that really makes it delicious. And it can be naturally vegan. So
there we go.
That's usually not important for anyone outside of my family, but that's it's there. What's much more important is that Astrea is mixing things up. So, I mean, let's all just move that PvP with Mass Phoenix and Mothership and whatnot to the side, okay? Because that may or may not be the future of Europe PvP. North America PvP, because it is mostly just like North America, not the America is a lot America. It's a trip. There's some mind games that certainly go on underway, and that's fine. But then there's also just some new developments from the players that we see before us, because as individual people, these guys are, I feel like they're innovators. They truly love playing the game of StarCraft, and they love all the intricate strategies that can come out of it. And it just feels like they have fun doing their thing, as opposed to necessarily being well, I was 0.1 second later to this thing, so I guess I just suck now. Not super critical necessarily, although they do work hard, obviously, so on and so forth, but just rather thinking up new things, doing their own thing. And in this case, Astrea starting to do his own thing just by putting his 2 gateways not on the front lines, not on the wall.
Yeah, it's such a... I think he might, just based on the second pylon position, I think he might go and get a wall anyways. But I feel like this is just asking Trigger to say, yeah, build 4 adepts, build 6 adepts, run into my base. I dare you, go for that. Trigger's not going to buy it. He's building 2 Stalkers. He's going to take his natural on time. But that's kind of what it feels like. And you talk about how this won't be Phoenix Wars. You're right, because Trigger just hates Stargate play. He's been very vocal about not liking Stargate really in any matchup. So that already gives us, okay, well, this is probably not going to be Phoenix Wars, but Astrea has opened Stargate anyways, and it's not the second pylon. He's just got it right back here, tucked up into the mineral line. And the question then, is it just oracles? I mean, probably, because it's not like Trigger's building his own. How much does he get? How much does he get done?
The oracle potential is pretty high. I mean, if you do get 2 oracles, it feels like they have the world potential, right? As far as scouting, harassment, and time buying goes with stasis traps. So generally, aside from some wacky scenario where it's 1 base Stargate versus 1 base Robo or something like that, I kind of prefer the Stargate openers. I mean, interesting that Trigger is so not a fan of them. But I do really like their potential. They don't always reach it, but it is there. And Astrea is going to get some further harassment with some adepts, maybe get the combination going. If you can even find a sentry, that'd be pretty good. Obviously, we'll eventually get a scout with the oracle into the main base if the adepts can't get in. And this game is setting up for a solid 2 versus 2 base scenario, but where Astrea might be able to get some probe damage, might be able to actually get some vision and harassment going. Not with this first one, of course. This first one's pretty much dead in the water.
Hallucination saw that there was an oracle on the map. Second one on the way. Oh, well, as we say that, he's going to get a couple. It's not a ton. Oh, the depths in the natural as well here. Probes are going to have to get pulled. 3 workers go down. Zombie Grub, you've lied to me about Japchae, and then you lied to me about how much damage these oracles get done. It's unacceptable.
It's funny, because they're both not lies. I just didn't expect it. So it's true. No, that's actually really quite surprising. Well, okay, so the Oracle does a little cheeky cheek, goes right to the middle. It's always a little funny when they do that. It happens in a lot of matchups. It's like, yeah, you're going to put your units right in the mineral line, aren't you? Yeah. But the Adepts getting in there is also pretty cool. Not unexpected, but pretty cool. I'm more fascinated by the Stalkers that Trigger hallucinated, which I assume was on purpose. I think that could have been such a cool move. But then I'm also wondering, isn't that just overkill? Like, he probably had enough Stalkers to deal with everything regardless. It just was a matter of killing things fast enough. It's usually the problem in PvP.
Yeah,
so I don't know. It was cool, but maybe not the coolest, maybe not the most impactful.
Yeah, I think the problem is Astrea just dove in anyways. I think those stalkers were hallucinated before the everything dove in. And then it's like, yeah, like, don't dive into my natural. I got all these stalkers here. Don't dive into my main base. I got stuff. Don't commit. And then Astrea, you know, this bet. I'm gonna commit anyways. It's fine. Your mind games don't matter, Trigger. Have fun.
That's true, and I do love when that happens, and it feels like it does happen a lot in North America. It's just either purposeful, gutsy calls or accidental, honestly. And we have some further cool development, I guess. Trigger's going to go for a 2-base attack. Astrea is setting up for potential proxy gateway, but he's going for a 3rd nexus. This would only be for like Adept harassment. Oh, or Dark Templar harassment. That's a fairly fast Dark Shrine. This could get really screwy, because Astrea absolutely is going to go for a 2-base pressure. Not an all-in, but 2-base pressure, emphasizing some gateways, but also that Warp Prism. Wants to potentially even cancel his opponent's 3rd. But then if he wants to do that, he's notably not going to be at home. So, due to the DTs do a lot of damage, yes, he has access to observers, but they also probably will not be in the right place at the right time.
Well, Trigger already loses a Stalker here that he probably shouldn't have as he tries to get aggressive. So the Stalker lead is there, 16-12, but it's not a ton, and he's content. I guess he's scared Astrea enough. He's like, yeah, I'm just going to back up for now.
Okay.
And that buys time. Dark Templar aren't here yet, of course. It's halfway done, but he's going to just accept the fact that his 3rd base is slower. The game goes on.
Yeah. It is funny, though. It almost is... I wonder if Astrea could have done even more damage with the DTs, backstabbing, if he had played the victim. Like, oh, no, I have so few units. Of course, that would require a lot of forward thinking and a lot of scouting, which, you know, Astrea doesn't get 100% of. In the game of StarCraft, he just wanted to make sure that he survived, which he did. Now he's actually going to go on the aggressive to distract, I assume. 1 or 2 DTs might eventually get warped in. Oh, the blink forward Trigger was way too over-eager. That was the trap that Astrea was setting. Very much purposeful. Grabs the Warp Prism as well. No shield battery on Trigger's 3rd base means that this could be a big problem, but Astrea's Stalker count is actually woefully low. Despite the trap on the Stalkers of his opponent, Astrea comes in with half the Stalker count in total, so it looked a little concerning for a hot second, but it really wasn't.
And I can't believe, though, you talk about that, I can't believe the Oracles only get 2 probes in the main base. They spend so much time being afraid, like, I'm not going to get any damage. Now, let me just drop a Revelation on the probes. They could have wiped out that mineral line. That could have been so much damage. Instead, they get 2 probes, they wedge themselves around. It forces a couple Stalkers to theoretically stay in the main base, but Trigger seems to have forgotten that fact. And the game, what a weird game already. It felt like Trigger might have just lost the game on that blink, but he's okay because he was warping in Stalkers. That Astrea wasn't. Now he's got his 4th base on the way. This time the State Strep and the DT will go down, so that's going to be very nice. DT on the left side gets forced back as well. So despite all the damage that Trigger's taken, he's in a pretty solid spot here. The DTs don't get much done. He's got his 4th base. Actually, not fast. Not all that much faster. Now the Oracles dive in, but even still.
Trigger looks like he's in an okay position, but I do feel like, again, I'm going to use the word potential. I feel like the potential is still higher for Astrea. I mean, one of the reasons Trigger even had such a stable Stalker count was that he did forego, you know, that technology of the Dark Shrine. Although, to be fair, Astrea also didn't go for a Robo. But anyway, like, there's different things that are going well for them. Trigger, right now, it really is only the army supply. Otherwise, he's been behind in workers. 4th base timing, not such a big deal, but he's also behind in the upgrades. So +2 starts up for Astrea. Trigger still not quite getting to his, might be too distracted to do so. Only 12-second difference. Maybe that actually isn't enough. But DT Stride also on the way, Shadow Stride. Astrea has that potential to actually jump in and do a lot of damage on the economy of Trigger once again. Yeah, I just feel like Trigger's army, totally fantastic, but Astrea, potential still feels higher.
I get that, and actually now Astrea's on 7 gateways to the 4 gateways to Trigger, so even that army supply lead that we've been talking about, it was, I think, 11 Stalkers at one point, is going to rapidly diminish. That lead is going to disappear as Astrea now has his economy set up. I mean, Trigger's adding his gateways as well, but again, that timing that Trigger might have had when he was up 10 Stalkers and looked to run across the map, it's not there anymore either. So down upgrades, although actually it seems like Chrono's really making up the timing difference there. Does he have charge? No charge either. So Astrea's just getting more tech. You're right. The technology is just not there for Trigger right now.
Nope, doesn't grab charge, is not on his way to Robotics Bay. He did just scout that his opponent was going for it, though. That stasis trap was seen by the observer for Trigger, so he's very much confident in that for a reason. Astrea needs to worry a little bit, but with the high ground, shield battery, and the potential of charge out reinforcements, I mean, there's a lot of defensive prowess here for our blue Protoss. Trigger does have the good army to start maybe trying to take some map control. I mean, that's kind of what's missing, is that he's always had this good army. He's also finally ahead in workers, so that's great. But it's not really been able to use it so much to really scare Astrea. And even when Astrea was lower on the army supply, it was actually him that was scaring Trigger a little bit. So now we're getting into Disruptor Wars. Trigger's really going to have to be very good about being on the map with pure Stalker again. Not even like charge out run bys and DTs blinking on top, which usually distract the Disruptor players. No, it's just Stalker Wars, which I feel like eventually aren't good enough.
I mean, if you get a surround like this, it's never good enough here. Look at this fight coming out of Astrea. Trigger blinks on top, tries to get the surround. Well, the Zealots, the DTs, they're going to join this, and they're just so much better that even as Trigger, he thought he had a good opportunity, thought he could surround the surrounder. It actually doesn't matter. All the Stalkers go down, more are going to warp in. But it feels like Trigger's trying to play Christianer style when he doesn't have the economy to support it. He's getting more gas. He's mining all this gas, Zombie Grub, but he's not using it.
And I mean, for a while his economy wasn't the greatest, but it was still okay. I feel like really it was missing a lot of the control over the game. Again, whenever it felt like Trigger, you know, like I said, he had a bigger army supply, he was still the one on the defensive. So it never really got to get used, so he missed out on technology, which Disruptors didn't end up killing him here. But Charge Lots certainly did, and that is definitely technology. Sometimes they look worse in certain scenarios. 12 Charge Lots running single file into microable Stalkers. Well, the Stalkers actually do look quite good, but that was one of the more ideal scenarios for Astrea's particular composition, which has now led him into a game-winning potential since Trigger doesn't really have a lot of comeback mechanics. No Disruptors and no DTs, not even any Charge Lot run-bys. So it's a very, like, almost simple fight as long as you take the correct engagement, which is still a struggle, it's still a problem, but it's it's not having to worry about 1,000 different things that, you know, your opponent matching you in technology would have you worry about.
At least now Trigger's on double forward. She's adding in armor upgrades. He's finally getting that charge, which is heavily delayed. But, you know, like, he's staying mass gateway again. We saw Christianer. He took maps off max packs. He beat down Skillus. This is a valid way to play, but it just doesn't feel like Trigger's executing. He's not executing on the idea the way you want to see it. Now Astrea, he's going to knock his base down. So many DTs. Shadow Stride as well, so any structures aren't going to survive here. Trigger, honestly, he's even a bit slow on the reinforcement line. Now Disruptor doesn't get a ton, and the Immortal will fall. So this base seems destined to die. A lot of economy is going to fall down as well the probes are just dying. And, well, you know, actually, it's only 4 probes dead just yet. It seems like Trigger's making this a little bit better than it could possibly be, but now Stalker's blink on top. Why is this good for Trigger?
Oh, okay, a couple things happened there. At the very last second, it was because Astrea tried to go after the Observer to let his DTs wreak havoc, but he actually, like, it wasn't in time. His DTs all died before the Observer died. So he really should have evacuated instead. But then also his Stalker army, which was much smaller than Trigger's, was the only one fighting. Otherwise, his Zealots and DTs, they weren't a part of the fight, and they also weren't killing probes. I don't know if he shift queued on top of the probes and didn't catch it or what, but it really felt like that should have done a lot more damage. And it didn't. He took possibly the worst fight possible. Finally, Trigger gets that moment where mass Stalkers look to live up to their potential, as microable as they are, and now very good in these scenarios where there are no Disruptors on the field. There's about to be one, actually, but they can just focus on their micro. So, you know, don't run face first into Disruptor, and Trigger's army might just be better, especially now that it has 3-1 done. I feel like Astrea was going to win, but he really dived on top of that 4th base too hard.
What's getting me here, you talk about, well, I guess the Zealots were shifting. It's not even like the Zealots and the DTs killed any probes. They got like 6 of them. They didn't get the base down. It's like, you feel like you should get something out of that with all the tech and now the army.
Right?
You should get something. Instead, Astrea gets nothing. Well, actually, no, Zombie Grub, there's something that he gets, and that's a massive disadvantage here in this game, number 1. In a game that, you're right, he should have been running away with.
I thought so. Because he really didn't have to dive on that base. He could have retreated and then played to his strength, was like disruptors. Because if he still had the map control that he has had for 90% of this game, up until this point, basically, with the base trade, then if he also arrived at the front line with disruptors, it's the same problem as like Liberators almost, right? Where Trigger really has to play a very mobile style to win out, which he wasn't doing. Now he's kind of more in his element in this base trading scenario where more Stalkers with more upgrades is good. Astrea only has DTs to work off of, which aren't enough, as 2 observers still exist for Trigger. And cannons.
That being said, the cannons go down very quickly here, and Trigger's going to recall about half his army, but not an observer, so the observer's going to be a little bit slow. Does Blink have cooldown? I mean, these DTs, I thought they were going to try to blink on low ground even still. No, Astrea on the other side tries to take advantage of Trigger's distraction, but it Stalker upgrades Tommy Grub. They're starting to look really good here. 3-1, +2 armor, +1 shields on the way. And eventually these DTs are gonna die. I mean, eventually they're gonna die.
Yeah, eventually. Astrea has a lot of comebacks in his career. So does Trigger, actually, and I would call this one a comeback. It's not that he had multiple moments in which he was at a deficit. This game was at, largely kind of an even chance for both of them, I guess. Like, Trigger had the army supply, but Astrea had all the other things that we kept on mentioning, but they didn't use it. I was with you. Like, the execution on mass gateway seemed to be lacking, but he has made the comeback, I guess, or Astrea kind of gave it to him a little bit. Certainly put himself in a far more complicated position than he had to. It's not that Astrea was 100% going to win. This is the biggest throw of all time, but I do think this could have been played differently at that moment at the 4th base, and we're not talking about nearly as one-sided of the last 2 minutes, which Trigger is obviously winning.
No, you're right. Maybe Astrea's not getting Cy Young this game. He's not the best thrower, but he's certainly sitting top there at the rotation. So game 1 should have been a game probably that Astrea takes. Instead, Trigger, first map of the series.
And this is maybe his thing for this season, because, I mean, I didn't think he was going to win that first game versus Special. And then Special kind of helped him win it.
Yeah.
I guess is the best way to put it. Doom dropping and forcing a base trade in a scenario where probably playing a little more defensive would have worked out better for him. And then kind of the same thing here, where Astrea dove. I mean, he used all of his army in this attempt to maybe not straight up kill his opponent, but do so much damage that it was effectively a win anyway. And he didn't necessarily have to. He could have realized that things were going really screwy and then backed away. But I guess the point in which he realized it was going screwy was when he tried to kill the observer. It was at probably that point that he was like, oh shit, like I'm desperate. Hold on here. And he tries to kill the observer, which doesn't work. So I guess he was already too invested for too long.
Yeah, it's almost like Trigger hypnotized all of his opponents this season, Special, now Astrea, and said, look, it's just... You're playing really well. That's fine. Play like North America. Just flip the switch. You're going to play like NA now. It's going to get weird. I'm going to win that because I was raised in the slums of NA. I have learned to cheese. I've learned to play the crazy games. I've learned to be really good at Star Auction and all the other arcade games. And it happens. Sometimes you commit your entire army to kill a base when you only get 6 probes and you give your opponent a way back into a game. It's not common though. And, honestly, if we see Astrea still having these early games, we see him to keep playing like this, I don't think he's going to make that mistake again. I think that this is good job, Trigger. You got yourself a game, but you're going to have to play better from here on out because I don't think Astrea plays quite that sloppily again.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it...
I don't know. Maybe... Is that too much coke there, though? This is an A.
I don't know. Because I'm thinking also that Trigger probably doesn't play the way that he played again, actually. Like, I don't think his natural place is being the defender. I think he will also evaluate how that game got to the position that it did before it was clear he was going to win. And we'll improve on that as well. On the, the theory that we had, which is that, like, the execution of Mass Gateway wasn't really great. That he'll improve on that. And then who wins when that happens? Well, then Trigger probably does, actually, because Trigger's army supply was potentially oppressive. It just Astrea was good at puffing up his feathers almost and looking like the bigger, badder army. So
yeah. I mean,
I'm glad it worked out the way I expected, honestly.
There we go. I mean, look, if we're right
good PvP.
Like, if we know how it's going to go the entire time, it's not all that interesting. So yeah. One thing I can tell you though, Zombie Grub, it was probably better than the last series we did. So we're already doing better.
Yeah, the last PvP that we did was just all theoretically cool, you know, like, oh, development of meta and theory crafting, what happens here? Like that's fun. But this is mud wrestling. This is getting dirty. This is watching trucks go over smaller trucks.
And in fairness,
something is bloodlust.
And in fairness, that recall play that last series was super cool. But yeah, no, absolutely crush the trucks. Lust for the blood.
Europe cerebral, North America fisticuffs.
I mean, what's it that Churchill said? You know, like, never argue with a pig. He's going to drag you down to the mud, or never mud wrestle with a pig. He's going to drag you down and beat you with experience. I feel like I'm combining 3 different quotes there. It's fine.
I feel like you are as well. I'm not sure. I felt like the saying was initially, don't fight with an idiot. They'll drag you down and beat you with experience.
Yeah, I think there's also don't like arguing with someone is like mud wrestling with a pig. Eventually you realize that they enjoy it.
Okay.
Anyways, in the bottom right here, wrestling in the mud. Let's see if he enjoys it. It's Astrea.
In the top left, winning that first game, he is Trigger. Truly the best example I can give is that, you know, soccer, European football. It's a bit of a, let's say, like a non-actiony sport to us Americans, you know? Seems to be a lot of nothing going on. The Simpsons episode where the announcer's like, and then the ball goes to the left, and then back to the right, and then back to the left. But it's cerebral, right? It's like really cool. There's like really cool things that are happening. Like, trust me, bro, it's actually really great, and this is really great play. And then there's American football, where it's literally just like more people fight more Buddha. Crush the heads.
If we're not getting out with some concussions and like some chronic brain injury, is it even going back to our sport discussion, Zombie Grub? If you don't play the game and come out with it with some chronic brain injury, is it even a sport?
Exactly. What is it, CTE? America needs more of that. So you would.
Just weak. Everything else, I mean, they're not permanently injuring their brains. Absolutely weak. Yeah, seriously. Hit the ball with your head more, all right? Jesus. This is where we need Ben to make fun of us for playing hand egg. But, you know, I guess going back to your analogy, I feel like golf is there too, right? Where people that are into it, they're like, oh, this is super exciting. But I don't know, I feel like
my God,
might even be even more cerebral than football might be with it.
Football. I can say, I think for a fact, but I'm not certain. You know, other language broadcasters, when they cast football, soccer, they are so excited. You know, that's a stereotype. That's literally the Simpsons joke. He goes to the Spanish commentator and he's all hype. I don't think anyone's hyped for golf. Like, literally. Like, not that necessarily a bad thing for anyone's about to get in my back, but like, I feel like I've never heard someone play-by-play golf excitedly. Am I wrong?
I mean, like, someone gets a hole-in-one, they might get excited for a second. I think.
They're not even that excited. I've seen it.
Oh, well, you know, my parents watch a lot of golf. You can see how experienced I am.
Yeah.
I know it exists. Yeah. That's something.
Anyway, so the point is that was some good PvP. Now we have Trigger. Once again, going for a typical, rather safe opener as well. Double soccer, double sentry with a regular gateway wall off. Astrea loves his opener. He's going, double adept, double sentry, but then he also, once again, did not wall. So he's just doing it now. This is his thing.
He's technically walled, you know, he's got the robo on the high ground. And I feel like this is just inviting his opponent to try to do things to counter it, and then having the response anyways, just a little delayed, but in time for, say, 4 adepts to show up or something. But how do you feel about this quick robo? It's not a 3-gate robo. In fact, Astrea's got what? Zombie Grub, please explain, because my brain has clearly taken too many impacts. As a North American player, I don't understand.
I don't really get this one either, but this is such an Astrea thing. Like, I actually really, some of his early games that I can think of, back before he was the star player of North America, I'm talking like 2015 or something, I actually thought of him as a surprisingly greedy player. He really played off of like the extremes, extremely aggressive or extremely greedy. So I do recall a couple of very greedy third bases, like 2.5-minute third base or something like that. Like, just like, this isn't exactly, it's not a thing.
Oh, he went,
But-
you remember that there was an Eternal Empire build where he was like single gate 3 Nexus by like, and I want to say the 3rd Nexus went down before 3 minutes. So yeah, you're right, Zombie. Like, just, man, the greed of this man sometimes.
Yeah, and the thing is that if your opponent plays in the middle of the road, then those extremes are better, right? So it's not quite rock beats scissors and its extreme, chances of winning, but it does give you an advantage, whether it's aggressive or greedy. And then it's more like if you're greedy versus aggressive, that's more like rock versus scissors, right? But this is almost I don't want to say guaranteed to work, because it's really not, but this seems like it would work against someone who's playing middle of the road, who might be a little more scared of you in the early game than you are of them. And so they do just play into the 2-base PvP, and then by the time they're ready to go, because it's not the most aggressive they can be, you are prepared to defend, which seems to be the case here. Trigger trying to go for a 4-gate 2-base attack while probably still thinking about getting to a 3rd. But unless he does some amount of damage, a 3rd or not will not matter. He needs to do damage here, and up against 3 Immortals and 2 Shield Batteries, it's going to be tough with only Stalkers.
I have heard that Immortals are really good. And with 3 Immortals here, especially with the buff that they got, where the first damage instance doesn't really do any damage to Hardened Shield, so the blink on top just to snipe an Immortal down actually doesn't really work all that well anymore. You got to toggle the Hardened Shields. It's a little bit more complicated, as now half the Stalkers got to go home because the Adepts, so smart. The Adepts go in for just a second, they force the recall, and then they just get out because they know they've already done the damage. This pressure isn't going to happen. I guess there are some Stalkers into the natural, but the good majority of this damage coming out of Trigger, it's already not allowed. It's already been just avoided by those by the 2 Adepts.
This feels like this should be a massive victory for Astrea. He's ahead 9 workers. But I guess the problem for him in this composition and the style of play is that he can't really get across the map. I mean, you can, but it's really slow going with Immortals. And it's really dangerous, even if you have a War Prism, because the War Prism gets, taken out if you're microing your heart out. So, yes, this is good for Astrea. I'm just thinking that if Trigger had maybe faked aggression and then emphasized his 3rd base, he might have actually gotten into an okay position. Now he's going to try and add on some good technology like Charge to really even take a lot of the power out of the Immortal Sails, as well as Archons, and he could still win if Astrea goes out in the middle of the map foolishly. But Astrea should know not to do that.
Yeah, I'm a little torn about this as well. I feel like Christianer style, right? Getting only, I think he gets about, it's 2 to 3 gas. And just pumping up 12 gateways, mass charge lot, mass stalker. I feel like against what Astrea is doing, you hit 12 gate, you hit 12 gate, 10 gate, mass charge lots, something like that. Really delay your gas count. Just again, tons of zealots. I feel like that's actually really good. Even with the shield batteries here, it's not like there's a lot of anything that properly deals with zealots. But Trigger, you talked about the middle path. He's absolutely a Taoist. He's absolutely Buddhist. He is walking that middle path. He's going to cancel the 4th base. That's something. But Charge isn't done yet. He can't get super aggressive, and instead, tech on the way, adding in the Robobag, moving on to, I assume, Disruptors.
Yeah.
And Astrea's gotten away with it. He's got 4 Immortals here with this army. He's got Blink. I mean, all of a sudden, we're in the situation where Astrea has this army. He's the one that's going to start to try to lean on Trigger, and that's a hard army to fight.
Maybe if Trigger had done one or the other, 100%, mass charge lot or right into Disruptors, he would have had a chance. As I was saying, mass charge lot could maybe get a surround on the army as it's coming over. It's already here, so that didn't work out. Or it could have maybe had already 1 or 2 Disruptors, which also might still not have worked out enough, because then he would have less army supply overall. But, now kind of middle of the road, actually he's going to Colossus, which is cute. It's very consistent. But to actually try and kill these units, that's a different question. One Colossus will not kill these particularly quickly. All I'll do is really pop the shields, I guess, which is something. Trigger's War Prism does try and buy some time, forces some type of recall, and apparently it will. Astrea not completely confident and moving into someone with Charge Archon and shield batteries, which is very understandable. But this does mean that Trigger will get to his Colossus composition. So that's a good move for him then. You know, he didn't just waste 20 Zealots that are now going to maybe look a little awkward as Astrea retreats.
Yeah,
but are Colossus going to win out?
You know, I don't know. I mean, we're going to have triple Disruptor here coming out of Astrea, adding in 2 more Robos like that Robo Bay as well. Colossus are a very specific timing. Your mass charge lot, they're going to do decently. Once you start to add the Disruptors on the field as well, Colossus are big, they're bulky, they're not particularly fast, and there's a reason we don't see Colossus all that often in this fight, in this matchup, because again, Immortals kill them, Stalkers blink on top of them and kill them, and Disruptors annihilate them. So Trigger's building this army. It's really good against a bunch of charge lots. It's not particularly good against anything else, Zombie Grub, and certainly not particularly good against what Astrea is going for with the Disruptors, with these Immortals, with the Stalkers. Colossus don't do much to any of those, realistically.
I do like Astrea's triple Disruptor a lot more. I think if Astrea stayed too long on non-robo play because he was filled with confidence based off his gotcha opener, then I think the Colossus have a real chance. But triple Disruptor production, unless they are found out by their lonesome, should have enough firepower to take care of this, or at least ward it away for an extended period of time. Astrea also continuing to buy more time and more positioning with his army movements. Trigger forced to respond. I mean, he has the less volatile army. You know, if this does turn into a base trade, which Astrea is not going to force, he is running away, but if it did, it's, you know, Trigger running potentially into Disruptors. That is far scarier than Astrea maybe, you know, accidentally running into this army. The strength of Trigger's army is standing and fighting is what I'm saying, and that's what it's got to do, but so far not getting the opportunity, and now it is trying to go and stand and fight in the midst of Disruptor shots, which I don't know if it's actually going to work out.
Yeah, it's weird. So Trigger goes, he gets a couple Immortals pretty quickly here, but this fight, you got to commit with this army, and with the Disruptor just periodically sending shots off. I mean, it's just Disruptor already knocks off half HP of a Colossus. And by the way, you point this out, there's Disruptor shots on the Archons as well here. I mean, the Colossus are still firing strong, Zombie Grub. They're not dead just yet, and it is still scary to jump on. This is looking better for Trigger than I think it should. Robos are going to start to fall here as well. And, I mean, it's not horrible. It's actually looking pretty good.
It's getting to stand and fight. It's dodging away from the Disruptors as the blue army here. It tucked into a choke as well. A little bit freer now that the Robo's killed. And it uses the left side of the Nexus as well. Astrea getting that concave that he needed. Tearing down the Zealots as well. In fact, getting a shot on their potential retreat. And Trigger did not find the back-breaking damage that he needed to. He did find damage, but Astrea was really just about buying time, I think, and getting some better positioning to win this game. Up 30 army supply, still with Disruptors, still with a ton of reinforcements, and now feeling confident enough to run on top of the Colossus, blink on top of them, saved by the Warp Prism, that one ever not saved. And now the Colossus aren't doing really all that much damage to the Concave Stalkers. It will be game over. This last couple of Disruptor shots? No. Oh, shit. Oh, well, that's a bit troublesome.
Yeah, now Disruptors, I mean, there's a shield battery keeping a couple of these alive. Trigger's still in a horrible spot, Zombie Grub. He took so much damage on the other side, so he's down about 20 workers, down an army supply, but somehow still in this game, which, given the compositions, given everything that's happened, that doesn't feel like it should happen. Astrea is still in all... I'm not going to say an unlosable spot. We saw that last game. But he's still in an incredible spot, and Trigger's moving into Disruptor play. The Colossus timing has ended. He's not going to get any more of them, and, well, it's going to be not a lot of Disruptors to 5. I guess the one thing is that it's only 2 Robo to 2. One of the Robos did go down, and that is something. That does slow some of the roll of Astrea here.
Astrea, once again, with the Dark Shrine, however, is going to add complications. Trigger still doesn't have his 5th base, and it'll be difficult to do so against someone who can afford to send a couple of units that way, this way and that. Warp Prism still alive in the back of the top left corner, too. So, again, it, you know, maybe broken record, but Astrea, I mean, he's not even potential. He straight up is ahead in this game, that's for sure. Straight up is ahead. He's got everything going for him. He's got upgrades, he's got army, he's got workers. It's better for him. But Trigger, with Disruptors, anything can happen. And Astrea can still make a similar mistake to the last game. even if the compositions are different. He could still get out on the map and then not pay attention or have his units distracted by killing a Nexus when they shouldn't, something like that. But it is going to be down to Astrea making another mistake. It's just last game proved that he could.
Yeah, kind of interesting as well. You look at this. Oh, just barely gets the disruptor down. It's funny looking at this as well because the resources lost were, I guess now they're 500. Different triggers lost a little bit more, but the resources lost is just very, very similar. They've traded pretty evenly over the course of this game. It's just, you're right, Astrea, he got away with that very quick third base. He got his fourth base much faster. He's got a fifth base on the way now. He's kind of learned how greedy he can be, and he's just been doing it a little bit better. Now disruptors are out on the map, though, Zombie Grub, and you talk about losing track of your army, maybe making a suboptimal fight. Well, disruptors, one shot can change the game. And, well, Trigger's got, it's not the game-changing disruptor shot, but that's a lot of dead zealots.
Really well controlled there because he also found the War Prism in the main base. So he just dealt with potential three-pronged attack, and one of them being a very fearsome attack with disruptors on his front line. So he's not choked in, he hasn't lost positioning on his fourth base, and he's maxing out, which means he's going to start to bank a little bit, which means he can actually be so courageous as to try and get a fifth base. It might be immediately canceled because the Zealot's right there, but still he can try and go for it. Disruptors on disruptors, and it's actually Astrea that missed micros a little bit. Now going to try and get some revenge. Doesn't find anything there. Trigger playing some excellent late game PvP. Astrea is not going to have the easy victory that he was hoping for, even as he remains a base ahead of his opponent.
The thing we have to remember here as well is that while Astrea does have +3 attack, and that is the upgrade that matters more, there is armor. These zealots in these late game zealot fights are going to trade. They're going to do pretty nicely for themselves with that armor, making sure they're a little bit tankier. Now, realistically, Zombie Grub, I think this is +1, not necessarily for that, but because +3 attack is expensive.
Yeah.
+1 armor is not nearly as much, but it is something that Trigger has. It does make these zealots just a little bit better. He's trying to double expand, which, I mean, you talk about temerity to get one base. Trying to get two bases like this is really hard, but he's going to find his way back to shield batteries and a defensive position. So he's actually not going to take too much damage from this, but he needs to find a way because Astrea's taking the map. Not only did he have those bases faster, he's taking the left side base. He's starting to take bases from Trigger. Trigger's got to find some way to A, expand as well, or B, knock some of these bases down, because otherwise Astrea's economy is just going to explode. It's already exploded, but is going to explode even more.
Trigger was probably right to try and double expand, but that's the key word, try. I mean, at least he got one base up. Also, I think there's so Trigger could maybe win with just cost-efficient engagements. That is true, it can happen, but you have to be very cost-efficient. Astrea really has taken over the map. The one thing I actually have hope for Trigger is a mid-transition weak point from Astrea. He's adding on his Stargates. He's going to add on maybe upgrades eventually as well. He's going to invest into like Chariot or something like that, Tempest, whatever, that aren't going to be out. And even if they are like 2 or 3 of them, that's not necessarily that strong. It's a difficult timing to actually hit, because even if you hit it to actually get the killing blow is still another question. But it's something that Trigger is going to have to, well, first of all, realize is on the way, and then second of all, try his best to actually hit that timing. But no scout on the fact yet.
Yeah, this is pretty cool coming from Astrea as well. Yeah, he's got additional Stargates and wants to go for that. His blinks forward on top of the Disruptor. A lot of Stalkers are going to go down, though, in the trade. Man, Astrea, a little bit too aggressive there. But the thing is, Astrea, he's committing to the carriers, absolutely, but he's going to have a faster timing. The Mothership is halfway done, and the Mothership, with the recent changes, Zombie Grub, first of all, it's 100 minerals, 100 gas cheaper, but it's been a game-ending unit. Finding a way to cloak all the units, just move around the map, get the time warps. Is it a really solid overall late-game unit? No. But Astrea here, if he hits that timing when all of his units are cloaked, and especially if he can snipe the Observer, he's going to just find this position where Trigger loses too much supply too quickly, and then you roll over him. That's the play.
Yeah, absolutely. Astrea is going to eventually get to the better army, no problem. Disruptors everywhere. Both of them taking some big shots. But it's that moment in which he is not yet there, but he is investing into that journey that Trigger might be able to find some wiggle room. But that wasn't really it. That was a trade in which Astrea is happy to take. He's the one that is richer and already transitioning after all. And as Trigger finally makes a decision, decides to go after the left side of the map, there's so much that defense is going to buy time at the very least. And that's what Astrea needs. More carries on the way, and Nexus fallen that he doesn't necessarily need. Well, speaking of static defense, both of them have a lot of it.
I was going to say, Zombie Grub, you talking about static defense there. I think Trigger's got a little bit more. So he's going to get the base, and Do you is there a recall available? There's gotta be. I feel like you just recall here, right?
I think the problem would be recalling literally your entire army. I don't think the recall's big enough. So, and then the recall the mothership. Well, I guess he could place his mothership or just use his own Nexus recall. Either way, the recall would probably be matched by some type of recall, which is the funny thing. But it's gonna go into base trade territory, something that Trigger really needs. Astrea playing a bit of a looser game because of a base trade. It's a little bit scarier for him, but it's one that I think he still wins. I think Trigger.
I mean, Zombie
all
Grub,
hopes on this. All hopes.
Yeah, you talk about this. You talk about Astrea still probably winning the base trade. This is a carrier army now. We're looking at soon to be 7 carriers on the map. And if I'm trying to find my way through a base trade, a bunch of Blink Stalker Disruptor, I like that a lot more instead of a carrier count. You have so much more maneuverability. You actually have a lot more burst damage as well. So if a Trigger can go and start to play around the map here, really channel his mentor Nina and turn this into a crazy base trade with all these stalkers, I actually like his position better.
You know what?
Carriers are good, absolutely, but you have so many Blink Stalkers. Carriers die very fast.
I think you're right. I absolutely agree with that. I really like this from Astrea. I think he absolutely had to do this. The reason that you were right was because the Disruptors weren't a part of the army. If the carriers are potentially snipeable, but Disruptors are waiting there, just waiting for the blink forward, then it's not a snipe. They can't be killed, or if they're killed, they still, like, the trade isn't worth it, I guess. But alone, yeah, Trigger was more than happy to race back home to try and take those carriers on alone. So Astrea recalls with his mothership, I believe that was anyway. Yeah, so he's gonna not have that, but he still has maybe the Nexus recall. Yes, he does. So he has options of escape, and he has options for straight up engagements. Now that he is with his Disruptors, the only thing that could go sideways for him is losing all of his Disruptors in a very poor Disruptor war.
I mean, I feel like, I just want to see Trigger go and start and keep base trading. This army is untouchable. This army is, what's our carrier count? We're at 9 carriers with +1 with +2 shields. It is untouchable, but it cannot chase your army down. It is not fast. In the mothership, good positioning, okay, but it is not fast at all. Base gets canceled here. And Trigger's game plan now is to try to knock bases down, but more importantly, to try to catch the army of Astrea out of position, as the Disruptors are so close to finding value. But if he can get a position like this, where the carriers are in front of the army, you can blink on top of them, knock a carrier down, back up, go again. But you cannot allow yourself, if you're triggering, if you get pinned back on your side of the map, the game is over. You cannot allow that to happen. You have to be active on the map while simultaneously defending 70 Ts on your Nexus, knocking a base down. This is damage that Astrea needs. But again, his economy's not where it once was. He's lost so many bases.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, reinforcing interceptors might also be an issue depending on how this game goes. The DTs were absolutely worth it. Not all of them are chasing, at least not yet. I think they all will be. So actually worth it's kind of debatable. Looks DT is very expensive. I just wanted to point out, I was kind of laughing because Trigger sent a Disruptor shot out onto a ramp, and I think it was because those carriers looked like they were weak, and Trigger just refused to believe that they were snipeable. So he figured that Astrea had like a Disruptor or something coming on the left side, you know, and he just threw it like a blind Disruptor to try and counteract it, because vision is limited for Trigger. All of his observers are around the map, I guess, elsewhere. Like, they're not just literally seeing everything in every direction, right? So he needs to be very careful about not getting backstabbed by Disruptor shots. Ditto for Astrea. He always has to be worried about where the armies are coming in and where the Disruptors are. Now he definitely sees them here. Snipes one of them, snipes 2 of them. That's no problem. That's not an issue, but this was also a bit of a distraction. The Stalker is taking down the DTs, now jump on top of the Nexus of Astrea. That's his last mining Nexus, but the battle is underway. All the Disruptors getting focus fire down. He's down to 2, he's down to 0. And without his own Disruptors, how does he take on Astrea's?
He doesn't, but again, at this point, the win condition isn't even the Disruptors. You'd love to have them. There is so much power. But it is truly in the base trade. And Astrea, yeah, he's won the fight. And this army is terrifying. It's worth so much money. He's not mining. Literally mining 55 minerals, 0 gas in the moment. He doesn't have an economy whatsoever. If Trigger can keep jerking him around the map like this, keep bouncing him around, making it hard, we're at the point where you can't afford interceptors anymore. We're at the point right now where Astrea, he doesn't have money. And Trigger, I guess Trigger doesn't really either. He only has this bottom left base. He hasn't been expanding enough. Well, the recall's gonna get forced. Disruptors, oh man, those carriers are weak though.
I don't know if they're weak, man. Trigger thankfully realized the disruptors were there and backed away at the last second. Trigger has 44 stalkers plus 3-2. Astrea did manage to finish up that +2 weapons long before the base trade had initiated, so that's good news for him. His interceptors also, I believe, they're maxed out. He's in a very good position. Unfortunately for Trigger, his couple of Archons that he's had, another one might bite the dust here, weren't able to get any beautiful shots because he could kill like 20 interceptors in one shot with a couple of Archons as they pop out or focus fire, and that would be worth so much. They couldn't be rebuilt. But the Archon isn't doing it. It's still weak. Disruptors once again getting focus fire, taken down as the Stalkers are forced to retreat. And we're back into base trade number like 6, I think. Because that's the only thing that Trigger can really do is hope to win, I think, legitimate base trade. Base race.
This is the final base trade. And the problem is Trigger, 155 minerals, 4 probes on the map. He's got a assimilator on the north side. He's got a couple probes here. He can build 1 pylon. Oh, well, you know what? You're not going to make that happen anymore. The disruptors caught him looking. He thought that his opponent's army, and there's going to be the recall. Blink on top. No, he can't get it. The disruptors are there. And now Trigger's dead. He made a big run of it, trying to play around the map. I did start to believe a little bit as a carrier. He doesn't have critical mass to kill carriers. If you can't one-shot him, at this point, it's not looking good, Zombie Grub. He's going to play around to see if he can make some magic happen because he did it in game 1, and honestly, he's done it a couple times in game 2, but he's running out of mana. There's no magic here.
Yeah, he'd lost at least 10 Stalkers to that Disruptor on the offensive. That absolutely would have one-shot that one carrier. And then there's still maybe a chance for that or a base race. But down to 28 and now having his entire army corralled, like this is it. At least he's one-shotting now. They think that's going to be game over, and it is. Astrea, after 26 minutes, will win game number 2.
That's what I like. We talk about PvPs being good, being not good, Zombie Grub. That's what I love in PvP. When you have one player, he's playing mass gateway units all on the map, playing around, bouncing all over the place. And then one player's like, yeah, no, my win conditions, I'm going to build a lot of carriers. I'm going to have to defend, and I'm going to have to play really perfectly because it's alternate win conditions. It's one player, again, they can't probably ever win the straight up fight, but they're not trying to. They're trying to catch off a carrier here. They're trying to kill a carrier there, get a base. And at least these really dynamic games where players are trying to do different things. Trigger couldn't pull it off this time. He was kind of in a rough spot the entire game, pretty much from the moment he couldn't punish that quick third. But he did make Astrea work for it. And that was pretty fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Trigger, I don't think should have been as close as that, but definitely played a good game. Started with the 3 Nexus build from Astrea, which didn't give him as much of a leap forward as expected. And then into the Colossus push from Trigger, which I was less hopeful for than actually ended up happening, and then it was not quite a wash, but it ended up being surprisingly not like super favorable, I guess, for Astrea. Not to the point in which he could use the advantage to kill the guy. Went on for 26 minutes. So at many points, Astrea was ahead. At every point, I think Astrea was ahead technically, but the amount of what ifs seemed to be endless for Trigger.
Yeah, if he's able to keep away from the carriers with his army, if he's able to go and not lose 20 stalkers to those disruptors at the end, if. And the funny thing about this as well is I talked about it in the cast, but Trigger has long been a friend of Nina. He lived with her for a while, boot camping last year, and that was a Nina game. That is absolutely a Nina game where she doesn't like the late game. She likes to play this bouncing around all over the place. I think back to the games on Juggernaut. However you say that map, I don't know if we ever really Juggernaut, where she would go, and that's how the game would look every single time. And it seems like Trigger's picked up some of that because, again, this same idea, heavily upgraded stalkers around the map, bouncing around. Unfortunately for Trigger, though, one of the things you want to do when you're playing that style, you want to catch carriers by themselves. You want to knock them down and shut down some of the critical mass. And Astrea did such a good job of just keeping them balled up and not letting them get strung out like that.
He did. He was very close to making a mistake, but the mothership recall was pretty well timed. So he did get to the better position and was able to tie it up. But it's one of those bows that's kind of haphazard. You can see like the masking tape and stuff that fixed it. But it is a bow, and so he will tie up the series. It's funny that we talk a lot about Trigger replicating Nina's overall playstyle, I guess. Certainly taking some inspirations here and there for it. But I was also wanting to mention which I might finally get to in this third game, that the 2 gateways not on the front wall, I feel like is a neat thing as well. I feel like she was experimenting with that a lot over the years, bringing it back and then phasing it out. So it's funny that Astrea is doing maybe the early game thing, and then Trigger's doing more the mid game thing that we'd expect from Nina. Not that either one is, trademarked by her, of course.
No, absolutely not. But it's fun to see. Much like in the bottom left here, in the blue, making it happen in game 2, Astrea.
In the top right with an incredibly fast probe, we do have Trigger. Is he gonna proxy gate because Astrea has not been walling?
I mean,
No, he's not. Damn it.
Hey, we haven't seen the main base yet.
Hidden pylon, hidden pylon, hidden pylon! Yes! Yes, that's the downside of not building a wall. Sucker.
I forgot what I was going to say. It's like, is he going to proxy? Oh, no. I mean, no, we haven't seen the main base yet. He still gets his way in. And he's keeping the probe here. So this is more than just a hidden pylon to warp in a couple of depths or something. Is this a gate? It's an
Yeah!
SOS!
Yeah,
This is...
I love it.
Hero SOS. I am Katowice 2014. Right back at you.
Dude, I love this because I actually don't know if a non-in-base 3-gate would have been enough. I know that sounds a bit absurd because it would be totally unscouted. It would still be against someone who didn't have a wall to work off of it by at least a little bit amount of time, but I'm not sure just because this is a build that's not really supposed to work, all right? As soon as Jaedong defended like the 4-gate on 3 hatch before pool, it was like, oh, I guess this doesn't work anymore. This like early gateway shit is not going to work. But if you are just the most courageous with its placement, then this should be a default victory.
Astrea has no idea. He thought about scouting for. He hasn't looked at all. Zealots are getting chronoed out here. Cyber's going to be done soon. And by the way, Zombie Grub, not only is this no scout of the main base, Astrea, this is like the latest scouting probe. It's the Cyber Scout.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just.
Yeah.
It's This is gonna be fun. I guess Astrea is building 2 adepts, and that's good against zealots.
Well, yeah, I mean, they projectiles and zealots aren't. But the trick is, though, do the adepts kill them fast enough? And the answer is usually no. One zealot does get surrounded. What kind of surrounded? The buddy's helping him out. Basically, there's no perfect surround. There's no perfect scenario. 8 probes have already fallen. Now, you do have to do a lot of damage with this because all of your production is on the offensive. Was 9 probes enough? I don't think so. Maybe make it 12, and then I'm starting to wonder.
I mean...
And I think you do eventually get 12 because Trigger's getting his own adepts, which at the very least could just sack themselves onto the probes.
Honestly, I'm really surprised we're seeing adepts here, not stalkers. Yes, adepts kill workers. Absolutely. They cut through shield battery. But stalkers are just better fighting units, and they can cut. I guess the main base is small, so it's a little hard. Zombie grab. Oh, no!
Oh, no!
You said this was an auto-win. You told me that there's no way that Astrea wins this because he was scouted.
I said this gotta be, question mark.
Well,
Chris, a slight upward inflection. Oh my god, this build is so freaking terrible.
If Astrea has literally no scout, has no idea what's happening, and this doesn't win, strike this from the book of Protoss BS. No, you're not allowed to do this anymore.
Gosh.
Anyone does it after this, they're just they haven't seen this game. They're asking to lose. This is
now I got 2 examples of this. I know that last one was ZDP, but still I got 2 examples of this being the worst build in the world. Why? Oh, that second adept getting trapped is so heartbreaking, though, because I think that at least could have maybe gotten 1 shade into the mineral line, and then 3 additional probes would have still done better. You know, the problem is still you have 3 gateways on the offensive. That's not going to be saved, but it still would have been better. And instead it gets trapped. Oh my god.
Zombie Grub, I have a story to tell you about how Trigger wins this game. Okay? Bear with me. There's a robo-fall up here. There's a gateway on the high ground. You can send your warp prism on the other side of the map to repower the gateways. Get your 4-stalker warp in and make it happen.
Yeah, 100%. And if Astrea doesn't predict this, he's not the NA Terran Protoss I thought he was.
I mean, he's taking a gold base, so he is the NA Terran you thought he was, but maybe in a different way.
Yeah, very different way. He's still not. If he doesn't think about this warp prism powering those gateways. Tisk tisk.
I'm
Oh,
on so
Trigger's
much.
gonna fly over the base. It's the Stalkers. No, Jesus.
Oh well, actually, I don't notice.
Okay.
I don't think Astrea saw that.
I don't think so. Nexus didn't have the full range. Just building now. It's gonna happen.
Very quiet, zombie grub. We can't let Astrea know. This is gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
He just used recall on the probes. There's nothing back on his base. This is so stupid.
But it's actually not powering all 3 gateways, which is a little bit awkward, and he warps in a depth, not Stalker, so the warp person's gonna die. No! It's still up. I love it so much, but it's still not gonna get anything done.
They misfired on the Nexus, and then they shaded out doing any probe damage.
What is... Zombie Grub, please, explain to me how this game works.
Oh.
Are we still watching StarCraft? Is this still the game where it's like...
I need that meme, man. Finally, some good PvP.
I do really like the Phoenix response coming out of Astrea, though. Like, understanding that this is going to have to be weird for Trigger to have a shot. Build the Phoenix, lift up everything.
Yeah.
And by the way, even as this happened, the 3rd gateway wasn't powered. He only powered 2 of them. How? I don't know how that 3rd gateway honestly wasn't in the power zone, but now there are Immortals here. There are Stalkers. Round 3 from Trigger. It's a powerful army. Phoenix.
I think that Astrea might have been thinking about the gateways. I think the Phoenix were, as you said, just a beautiful move because they also would have helped against the Immortal play. So he knew it was a robo. So whether the Warp Prism came, first or with this push, whatever, the Phoenix are going to be very helpful. So I have zero hope in Trigger's victory, but God, what a PvP.
I love this so much. This is what we've been missing. We Cats and I have been talking about, you have like players that experiment versus players that just optimize. And we have honestly been lacking. Astrea, that doesn't power those gateways. That pylon is for you, not your opponent. But you don't.
Yeah.
This is not Terran. These are not add-ons. You don't steal your opponent's gateways. We're seeing creative play. Like I love this. It's not gonna work, but I love the attempt.
It shouldn't work. It shouldn't, but I feel like it might just because PvP, NA. It shouldn't work. Astrea is so confident that it's not going to work, even goes without a shield battery, goes offensive. 100% didn't work.
We're in the upper bracket, Zombie Grub. You have room to experiment, but didn't work. It's really fun.
Can't believe the in-base triple gateway proxy was so ineffective.
I got something. See, you told me last time we cast together, that I couldn't use it, but I think I'm justified at this point in cracking this open. Because that's what has happened here. Like, this is... If this doesn't justify the nose, Zombie Grub, I don't know what does, honestly.
Yeah, that deserves the nose. It does. There are some shenanigans. Astrea's gold-based ploy was actually overshadowed by Trigger's insistent shenanigans, but it was also a bit of shenanigans. So I think both of them playing a little bit like that. Astrea gonna get more coffee. He is playing from Korea, I believe. So. Yeah.
I mean, it's what is it? It's like, is it 4 in the morning?
4? Yeah, something like that.
Which is very late. Actually, no. Who am I kidding? This is gamer hours. This is when peak Korean StarCraft happens, anyways. So we're good.
Is it?
I mean, I do know that it's getting a Korean player to play in a show match before noon is impossible.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Because they play super late. I don't know that 4 a.m. is cutting it, but we're close enough, right?
Yeah. Well, my throat got messed up with all the laughing I was doing.
So, what happens now? All right, we've had the 3-gate in base power with a warp prism. It didn't work. Does Trigger have something even weirder up the docket, or we just kind of go back to macro play where it feels like he's just half a step behind Astrea? I don't know.
I don't know. I really don't, because he might not be leading the games, even the one that he won. Again, that was a bit of a throw situation maybe from Astrea, but I do think that there's a lot of potential in it. He clearly has some advantage when it comes to the Blinkstalker Disrupt their wars, I would say. Not enough to overcome some of the deficits, or he didn't play into that in the first place in the first game, but I do think he has some power there. So I'd like to see him try that again, personally, instead of some super shenanigans. Move on to hard lead for what could be the last map.
Now we're gonna have to see if he can make that happen, or whether we have more shenanigans, because in the bottom right, in the red for Basilisk, it's Trigger.
And at the top left, he's the one going for the proxy pylon. Now it is Astrea.
Makes a lot of sense. You're in the upper bracket finals. You're up 2-1. You have a series to give and a game to give. Might as well throw something crazy. But of all the proxies, a proxy gateway this far away?
Yeah, what?
It's a Maca gateway. He's gonna float the gateway back home after this.
yeah. The real power comes in as Trigger's confusion. He's gonna see like none at the wall, and he's gonna be like, oh yeah, and he's gonna see none at the mineral, and be like, what? No! You trigger on his entire base, and then he's gonna be super confused. He's not gonna be there. He's gonna check his natural, and there's not gonna be anything there either. And he's gonna just be so busy defending nothing that Astrea will like get an expansion or something.
I mean, Trigger's got 2 gateways on the way. Astrea's only got 1. This is a single gate expand.
Okay, yeah, exactly. If the 2 gateways are so busy looking for things at home, then they'll never look for anything outside.
If I don't know what I'm doing, my opponent can't know what I'm doing either. I mean, what is that? He's rallying a zealot across. I guess there's a timing when you're not building anything out of the gateway yet, because you want double stalker, double adept or something, and he's treating this like Reapers and leading with the probe, but you just, I mean, there's, probe. No, he's not going to be able to wall the high ground. So the zealot gets in. In fact, he's going to block this out, but yeah.
It's one zealot.
It doesn't do anything.
I wonder if Astrea was hoping that he would pylon wall in like over defense.
Well,
over defensive maneuver, and then like delay his nexus.
I mean, Astrea Trigger's messing this up. He's gonna lose 4 probes. This is as many probes as the 3 zealots got.
Probe was so clutch right there. That probe killed 2 probes.
Zombie Grub.
Bruh.
This was more effective than the 3 gate in base proxy.
It was. I can't believe this. I can't even right now. Astrea, he's got 1 sentry and a stalker to defend his home, but Trigger's only leading with 2 stalkers and then 2 adepts, which, you know, they're not necessarily the biggest fighting force. And there's a wall now, by the way, so that's not an issue.
ZG, I won off Mr. Angel's wild ride. Like, not okay. I'm not doing okay right now. And I mean, 2 stalkers, 2 adepts, a Stargate follow-up. It can do things, but I worry about Trigger's mental here at this point. You go 3 gate in base, doesn't get scouted, you get less damage done than a single probe and a single zealot, and now you're trying to find something on the other side. Like, at this point, it's the mental damage that matters, not even the in-game damage.
Right? I mean, clearly Trigger's figured things out by now, seeing the 1 unit reinforcement every single time. But the problem is that he's been tripped up so much and didn't, you know, pre-plan a super aggressive build that once again, this kind of not middle of the road approach. I mean, it just was so weird. As not set him up very well, although he does get a sentry, now we'll get a couple of probes. This is the best thing so far for Trigger.
Well,
will he get a couple of probes? There you go.
He syncs up the shots properly, and now he's, oh no. Well, attack commanded on the probe that's far away. Zombie Grub, by the way, you know, we talk about 1-1-1s with Terrans all the time. Did you know that Protoss also has a 1-1-1 opening? Single gateway, single robo, single Stargate.
It's good stuff. What is the warp prism for?
So you can warp in no units at a time because your actually gateway isn't powered.
No, he's gonna build an immortal and then use his immortal warp prism Phoenix to fly around.
I mean, he is gonna deny the Oracle, so there's that.
Well, that was a given.
Yeah,
that was. But the warp prism. What is it for? What
a series to end our day on, right? We have some good macro games, and Trigger wins 1, Astrea wins 1, and now we're just totally off the rails. This is true 5 a.m. StarCraft, like that we're getting subjected to here. This is, I don't know what these players are on, Zombie Grub, but I think I want some.
He should power his gateway to warp in one more stalker to one-shot the probes.
There we go.
I can't believe he didn't do that. I can't believe his brain is so small.
He actually has no warp-ins. Like, he's got this single gateway on the map. He actually can't build any gateway units. These 3 stalkers from early on. That is just it. And now we're going into a Phoenix battle. Second Stargate on the way. What?
Oh my god, what the frick?
What?
Astrea is like, there's no way he'll play Phoenix after that Oracle opener.
Zombie Grub, I know our job is to talk about this game in a somewhat knowledgeable manner. I've got nothing.
Nah, not this one. Not this game. No, I have no idea. I really don't. I think Trigger is in the better position, though. Not because he's winning the Phoenix War, because Astrea's not really playing a Phoenix War, but because Astrea is going to go back into a gateway attack. But a gateway attack into a 2-base, I assume eventually Robo. Yeah, okay, there it comes out now. I mean, well, no, okay, yeah, Trigger does win this battle. That's gonna be so many Phoenix. Sorry to finish my point. It's gonna be so many Phoenix.
Yeah, and
they're
now
gonna lift up so many units.
Yeah, he's got a Robo on the way as well, right? So it's gonna be Phoenix Immortal. We're not gonna have a ton of Immortals though, is the problem. And Astrea's getting ready to hit pretty quickly. He's got the gateway repowered Zombie Grub. It's really important, but more importantly, he's adding, what is that? 5? He's going up to 6 gateways.
Oh my god. And he's proxy pyloning in the front of his opponent's base.
Which is scouted, but hey, you know what Phoenix can't do, Zombie Grub? They can't kill buildings.
Nope. They don't even know about the second pylon. They can build a shield battery. God, I hope it does. No, the stalkers don't see it. Or they do, but they don't attack it.
At this point, we need to stop talking about what might happen. We just need to sit back and enjoy what's happening here, because this is wild. This is not StarCraft anymore. This is...
No! Oh my god. Stop using your Phoenix energy. Now he realizes what's up. A Phoenix on the rally gets destroyed by Astrea, and Trigger is totally out of position. He never started building an Immortal. Now he's building an Immortal and a Void Ray. He does have a shield battery, the second one on the way now, but his Phoenix is going to be coming back over his opponent's units. No!
There's no blink, so actually you're going to be totally fine here. The Stalkers can't do much damage. And look at what... Oh, Trigger's so smart. He's keeping his Stalkers on top of the stasis trap. I think Astrea thought earlier, but he is making it so any sort of jump is going to be hard. But you talked about shield batteries, Zombie Grub. A gateway on the front line. Shield batteries on the front line here.
Yes.
You may not like it, but this is what peak PvP looks like.
Yes. Stasis trap does get demolished. We got ourselves good old-fashioned North America PvP. Astrea's Phoenix not even doing anything. They don't even need to do anything. They may come into the future. I don't know. Supply block for Trigger, by the way. Both of them supply blocked at 94. Posted to Reddit. Terran got called out. Now Protoss can.
I mean, I think this game is proving that Widow Mines are in fact imbugged and need to be nerfed. That's how that works if we talk about Reddit. But at this point right now, with the shield batteries that we talked about, Phoenix, there are so many of them. They're going to get good lifts. There are so many shield batteries that I actually think they do negative damage. I think you lift them up, they try to do damage, the Stalker's going to heal for more.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is very different if Astrea literally just tries to win the game. You know, just is like, oh, I can win right here, and then tries to overpower someone with defense advantage and that many Phoenix. But Astrea just literally containing his opponent and expanding next to the contain. What are you gonna do about it? He is literally the sibling waving his hands in front of your face. And even as you try to get a couple of smacks in with the, I guess, the probes going down here, it's like, is that enough? Does that make up for everything?
Trigger's army supply is in a pretty solid spot. He went Void Rays Immortals and Shield Battery overcharged, and honestly, he's taking a pretty solid fight. Guardian Shield, though, is making a big difference right now, and the walls are going to go down. Immortals taking damage here. Phoenix on the backside, they're going to knock down an Observer Zombie Grub. It's not like that matters, but they kill something, finally. And now with the lifts on half the army, some of the Stalkers are just going to start to go down. In fact, Shield Battery is starting to run out of energy for the most part, but I think we can overcharge some of these, as now the Phoenix are starting to fall down. Immortals are still firing, though, but here come the Phoenix of Astrea, and they're going to do... They're not going to do anything. I lied. He breaks out, kind of.
The overcharge, is it available? Can it reach? Apparently not. Sentries get warped in. They push away the Stalkers from the continued attack, and, I mean, technically this still exists. He's so confident he can keep this hold, he recalls his probes.
I don't know. You know, Zombie Grub, honestly, I don't know that I'd be that confident. This army out of Trigger is starting to become pretty scary with the Stalkers and the Immortals. He doesn't have Blink, though. That's a big deal. Void Ray has to find his way back just a little bit, but with... I can't even call it Defender's Advantage. Trigger is starting to punch. I think he's starting to punch through here.
What is happening? Yeah, I think he is. The shield batter's out of juice. The no overcharge is actually a big factor. I think this one fine will get an overcharge. The Void Ray is going to get destroyed. Immortal is vulnerable now. That's away from its own shield batteries. Trigger still has to be careful about this, especially with a force field willing to pop that forward. Oh, Trigger. If he can't break it, he can't break it, though. It's like, this is not him engaging on his opponent's side of the map and then retreating to some third base that he had gotten. He needs to actually break out of this and stop Astrea from mining on a third base that is his own damn base. He had it first.
I mean, he's got a really nice concave right now getting set up. Stuff is getting lifted. No overcharge, no shield batteries anymore. But these force fields from Astrea on the left side. The Immortal's not able to fight now. Well, here we go. Army Supply starting to equalize a little bit more. Zealots, well, they're just going to soak shots for now. Immortal will fall. Phoenix can't do anything to keep it alive. And somehow, I think Astrea's going to hold the position. There's still an Immortal. And these slow Zealots are doing actually a ton. And now, shield batteries on the Nexus. They're going to have a full 100 energy. They're going to have that overcharge eventually. At least Blink is done for Trigger. And actually, that's a key thing to point out here. There was no Blink for Astrea. He hasn't even started it. These Stalkers will technically trade better over time.
Sure?
I think.
If they ever get an opportunity to really shine, though. I don't know if they ever will. Astrea dominating the worker count, of course. Actually has a third Nexus to mine from. Also an advantage in the stalker count. You're right, no Blink, no two Immortals. It's that Trigger is, I think at this point, is at a losing game. He was so close to breaking through. So freaking close. And unable to do so, it just gets worse. It gets so astronomically worse as soon as you can't quite break through. And then you're just tired. Then it's over. Adrenaline's down. You're just fatigued. And Trigger is going to lose this game unless the Dark Shrine can say something.
Yeah, I really thought he was going to break through. And at that point, it's like, well, I've killed my opponent's Nexus. I'm going to get all these probes. I'm going to cut down on at least 2 gateways on the map worth of production. Like, okay, now we're gaming. But because he was not able to find his way through, and now, even though Trigger's got better Stalkers, technically, the concave from Astrea is so nice. I guess... Yeah, no, there's an Observer on the map. I was going to say, like, the Phoenix killed an Observer early on, and Astrea didn't, but no, he did build a second Observer, so that's not even really going to be a thing. There's a Warp Prism on the way. You can warp in a couple DTs in Astrea's main base and his natural, maybe? But, yeah, I mean, this point, this is, Astrea still's going to have a mining base that he's actively defending.
If Trigger can get a Warp Prism across the map and 4 DTs warped in, I'm a believer again.
Zombie Grab, it's going to take more than that, I think. You got to get 2 Nexus. You got to kill main and naturals worth of probes at this point.
I think he could, though. Well, I mean, the thing is that if he recalls back to defend his main and natural, then his third base is vulnerable. Like, I don't know, man. I'm just more so than that, though, to be honest. The thing that I'm thinking about is 4 DTs killing the Robo and then somehow sniping the 1 Observer of his opponent.
All right, so Observer here for Astrea. Trigger's he lost 1, so he had to rebuild. Observer here on the front lines. Oh, Astrea's got stars. I don't even know what he saw, but he's got a second Observer on the map, so you don't have that immediate snipe into dead Robo. And pylons are not the target here, Trigger. You got to do game-defining damage, game-ending damage, and 3-4 probes. There's already an Observer here, so it's something. It's not enough. It's not nearly enough.
I liked my plan, though. I mean, the second Observer kind of threw a wrench into that plan, but Trigger tried, and it did not work. And now it is assuredly Astrea's game to win, whose brain is truly gigantic.
Okay, here's one thing he's gonna... Oh, he gets it! That's what he was going for, and now... He's only 1 DT, though. It's only 2 DTs. It's a smart move, and...
Just recall the Observer.
Yeah, but if you do it again, Zombie Grub.
I'm gonna do it again. The Robo's still up, though, so it's not the game end. The third Observer's on the way. That's gonna be it. Astrea with the big brain strat.